What if I told you that behind the marble walls of America's wealthiest families, secrets exist that would make your blood run cold? Have you ever wondered what happens when billion-dollar empires collide with forbidden desires? Today we explore how one family's Miami getaway transformed from paradise to nightmare in just 48 hours. Dramatic pause. Welcome to Criminal Mind Cortex, where we decode the psychology behind the most shocking crimes of our time. I am your guide through the complex maze of human motivation, where wealth, power, and fatal attraction converge. The story we are about to unfold involves Victor Sinclair, a man whose name adorned skyscrapers and whose influence extended to political corridors across the globe. His public image, the quintessential American success story; his private reality, a labyrinth of dangerous obsessions and fatal miscalculations. This was not simply a crime of passion. This was not merely a family dispute gone wrong. This was the inevitable collision of unchecked power, forbidden desire, and the illusion of immunity that extreme wealth often creates. When the Sinclair family gathered at an exclusive Fisher Island resort in Miami for what should have been their annual celebration of success and connection, none could have predicted the bloodshed that would follow. A decorative letter opener would become a murder weapon, a luxury suite would transform into a crime scene, and a family dynasty would crumble in less than 2 days. Before we continue, take a moment to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Our community of crime psychology enthusiasts grows stronger with each new member, and you will not want to miss our weekly explorations into the darkest corners of the human mind. What twisted logic could drive a respected billionaire CEO to risk everything for a forbidden relationship, and who would ultimately pay the price when those secret desires were exposed? Victor Sinclair was born with nothing but ambition. The eldest son of working-class immigrants, he leveraged a modest scholarship into a Harvard business degree, then transformed a small tech startup into Sinclair Global, a corporation valued at $70 billion by his 45th birthday. His calculated rise through America's business elite was remarkable, even to his harshest critics. By day, Victor cultivated an image of ruthless precision and innovation. Newspapers praised his visionary approach to global markets. Business journals celebrated his philanthropic initiatives that reshaped education in underserved communities. The public saw only the manicured version, polished speeches, perfectly tailored suits, and strategic appearances at charity galas. The Sinclair name became synonymous with excellence and opportunity. Their annual shareholder meetings resembled religious gatherings more than corporate events. Their charitable foundation distributed millions annually to causes that coincidentally expanded their influence while minimizing their tax burden. With success came expansion. The Sinclair family grew into a modern dynasty. Each branch carried specific responsibilities. Each member bore the weight of expectations, heavier than the average person could comprehend. Children were groomed from birth to continue the legacy, their education and marriages carefully considered for maximum advantage. Family first, but the Sinclair name above all else. This unofficial motto, repeated at gatherings and whispered to misbehaving children, reinforced the collective identity that superseded individual desires. Few noticed how Victor controlled family gatherings with subtle manipulation, how his compliments always contained hidden barbs, how relatives competed desperately for his approval, while fearing his disappointment. The tension whenever he entered a room, the way conversations shifted to safer topics in his presence. His Miami compound featured imported Italian marble flooring, original Picasso paintings displayed casually in guest bathrooms, and a helicopter pad for emergency business departures. His fleet of luxury vehicles, never driven, always chauffeured, included rare models valued higher than most family homes. More telling were the security measures: 24-hour guards, comprehensive surveillance systems, and staff required to sign extensive confidentiality agreements. Victor's private office remained locked, even to family. His personal phone never left his possession. These were not merely the precautions of wealth. These were the barriers of a man with dangerous secrets. Within the family, whispers circulated about Victor's unpredictable rage behind closed doors, about disappeared evidence, about rivals who mysteriously abandoned promising careers after confrontations with him. The real Victor Sinclair existed in these shadows, calculating, controlling, and convinced of his immunity from consequence. Fisher Island stands as a monument to exclusivity, accessible only by private ferry or yacht, where membership fees begin at $250,000. No bridges connect this paradise to mainland Miami. No tourists wander its pristine shore. The 700-acre sanctuary hosts only the privileged few whose wealth grants them entry to this carefully guarded world. The Sinclair family occupied the island's most coveted property during their annual gathering, a tradition dating back 15 years. These reunions served multiple purposes, celebrating company achievements, announcing leadership transitions, and most importantly, reinforcing the hierarchy within the dynasty. "Our weekend together reminds us who we are," Victor often proclaimed during the welcome dinner. While others dreamed, the Sinclairs build. Among the 20 family members present that fateful weekend were several key figures. Cassandra Reynolds Sinclair, sister-in-law to Victor and widow of his younger brother, arrived with a quiet intensity. At 53, her sharp observations and unflinching loyalty to family values made her both respected and feared. Marcus Sinclair, Victor's nephew and heir apparent to several company divisions, brought his endless ambition and barely concealed resentment of his uncle's micromanagement. His wife, Eleanor, a former corporate attorney, watched family interactions with calculated detachment. Then there was Liana Sinclair, 26, Victor's niece through his late brother. Her delicate beauty and quiet intelligence made her a favorite among the family. Few noticed her careful avoidance of direct interaction with her uncle in group settings. Fewer still observed their lingering glances when they thought nobody was watching. Beneath the gleaming surface of infinity pools and champagne brunches, currents of tension flowed. Conversations halted when certain members approached. Family photos captured strained smiles and rigid postures. The private security team, unusually numerous this year, monitored not just the perimeter but the family itself. The Miami sunshine illuminated everything except the truth. Against the backdrop of crashing waves and swaying palm trees, the countdown to catastrophe had already begun. The perfect blue sky offered no warning of the bloodshed that would transform this paradise into a crime scene. Liana Sinclair grew up in the shadow of wealth, without its warmth. Orphaned at 12 when her parents died in a private plane crash, she became the reluctant ward of various family members. A Sinclair by blood, but forever treated as an outsider. Her inheritance remained in trust under Victor's control until her 30th birthday, creating a dependency that shaped her reality. Unlike her cousins who embraced the family legacy, Liana pursued art history, a choice tolerated only because of her secondary status within the dynasty. Her apartment in New York, though luxurious by normal standards, represented the minimum acceptable lifestyle for someone with her surname. "You walk between worlds," Victor told her during a corporate gala 3 years ago. "You see things the rest of us cannot." This observation marked the beginning of their complicated connection. What started as mentorship evolved into regular private dinners to discuss art acquisitions for the company collection. These meetings offered Liana something she desperately craved: validation from the family patriarch. For Victor, she represented something equally valuable: someone who viewed him as a person rather than a power source. Their conversations expanded beyond art to personal disappointments, childhood memories, and eventually, forbidden attraction. "The rules that govern ordinary lives exist to protect ordinary people," Victor whispered during their first physical encounter in his Manhattan penthouse. "We are not ordinary." The psychological components of their relationship formed a complex knot of power imbalance, shared isolation, and mutual justification. Both recognized the wrongness yet convinced themselves they existed outside conventional morality. Both mistook emotional intensity for profound connection. In Miami, their secret meetings followed a careful pattern. Liana would rise before dawn to sketch on the private beach. Victor would join her during his morning security walk. 20 minutes of conversation in plain sight, yet intimate enough to sustain them until nightfall, when more dangerous meetings could occur. The second night of the family gathering, they met in the garden pavilion, a glass structure hidden by tropical foliage. Security cameras had been conveniently redirected. Staff had been dismissed for the evening. "We cannot continue this forever," Liana said, her voice barely audible above the fountain. "Something will break." If you are fascinated by the psychology of forbidden relationships, take a moment to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. What drives powerful people to risk everything for dangerous connections? Your insights help our community understand the complex nature of human desire. That evening, as Victor returned to the main house, he failed to notice Cassandra standing on her balcony, watching his path from the garden with narrowed eyes and a phone in hand, photographing his departure from Liana's secret meeting place. Cassandra Reynolds Sinclair understood power better than most. Widowed at 41 when her husband Victor's brother died unexpectedly, she navigated the family dynamics with precision. Never remarrying, she instead dedicated herself to preserving the Sinclair legacy through meticulous observation. The foundation of wealth is vigilance, she often reminded younger family members. Her position as board trustee for the family foundation gave her legitimate reason to monitor everyone's behavior. Her suspicions about Victor and Liana began 6 months earlier at the winter charity ball. A gesture, his hand lingering too long on the small of her back. A glance exchanged across the ballroom floor. Nothing concrete, merely patterns that disrupted the normal family rhythm. Cassandra began collecting evidence methodically. She noted Liana's sudden inclusion in private business meetings despite her lack of corporate role. She tracked Victor's schedule against Liana's appearances at family events, identifying 27 coinciding business trips to New York in 18 months. During dinner on the second night in Miami, Cassandra observed Victor's reaction when Liana mentioned a possible job opportunity in London. His knuckles whitened around his wineglass. His jovial mask slipped momentarily, revealing raw possessiveness before he recovered with practiced charm. "Perhaps we should discuss how that position might conflict with your trust obligations," he said smoothly. The following morning, Cassandra positioned herself near Victor's beach path during his supposed security check. She witnessed their meeting innocent appearing to casual observers. But the intimate body language told a different story. She placed her assistant on coincidental patrol duties, creating 3 near discoveries, interrupting them in the garden pavilion with urgent paperwork, entering Victor's suite unexpectedly with gift baskets, appearing at the private beach during dawn meetings. Each close call increased the nervous energy between the forbidden lovers. Victor grew irritable during family meetings. Liana became withdrawn at group activities. Their attempts to compensate with exaggerated normalcy only heightened Cassandra's certainty. Meanwhile, the extended family remained absorbed in their own dramas. Marcus fought privately with his wife about Victor's control of their financial decisions. Younger cousins competed for attention and approval. Business tensions created shifting alliances among siblings and in-laws. All remained oblivious to the gathering storm as Cassandra compiled her evidence. Photographs, timestamps, witness accounts from staff. Her expression revealed nothing, but her journal filled with damning details. By the third day, Victor and Liana's secret teetered on collapse. Their caution eroded under increasing pressure, making them vulnerable to the most dangerous person in any wealthy family, the one nobody notices watching. The Sinclair family gathered for Sunday brunch beneath a waterfront pergola adorned with fresh orchids. Waitstaff circulated with champagne flutes, while a string quartet played classical arrangements. Everything appeared perfect, the calculated performance of wealth that defined their public existence. Victor stood to offer his customary toast. "To family bonds that transcend all else," he said, raising his glass with practiced confidence. "How fascinating you should mention bonds," Cassandra interrupted, her voice cutting through the pleasant atmosphere. She remained seated, her posture rigid, as she placed her phone on the table. "Perhaps we should discuss certain bonds that should never exist." The quartet continued playing as she slid the phone toward the center of the table. On the screen, Victor and Liana embracing in the garden pavilion, his hand caressing her face in decidedly non-avuncular affection. "What exactly am I looking at, Cassandra?" Marcus asked, reaching for the device. "Ask your uncle," she replied, her gaze locked on Victor. "Ask him about his special relationship with his brother's daughter." The revelation detonated across the table. Eleanor gasped audibly. Marcus stared at the image, then at Liana, comprehension dawning with visible disgust. 2 younger cousins exchanged shocked glances. The string quartet, sensing disruption, faltered into uncomfortable silence. "This is absurd," Victor declared. his voice steady but underlying panic, evident in his too tight grip on his champagne flute. Cassandra has manipulated these images for some financial agenda. Her jealousy of this family's success has finally consumed her judgment. Liana sat motionless, color draining from her face. Her hands trembled violently until she forced them beneath the table. When she finally spoke, her voice emerged barely above a whisper. "I cannot do this anymore." Victor's attempt to maintain authority collapsed with those 5 words. His carefully constructed persona fractured as he rounded on Liana. "You will say nothing," he commanded. No longer the charming patriarch, but a threatened predator. Family members recoiled from his sudden transformation. Security personnel shifted uncomfortably, uncertain whether to intervene in a family matter. 37 meetings in private locations. Cassandra continued methodically. 19 overnight stays in adjoining hotel rooms. Financial gifts totaling over $800,000, all documented. Marcus stood abruptly. "My children are present, for God's sake. This is beyond comprehension." "Control yourself, Marcus," Victor snapped. "This will be handled privately." "Nothing about this will remain private," Eleanor responded, attorney instincts emerging. "There are legal implications here that extend beyond moral repugnance." The brunch disintegrated into chaos. Accusations, denials, and horrified questions overlapping. Staff were dismissed. Security tightened perimeters. As family members chose sides or retreated in shock, no one noticed Liana quietly exiting toward the beach. No one except Victor. The most devastating revelation came 3 hours later, when Marcus discovered financial records on Cassandra's phone, revealing an even more shocking truth. Liana was not merely Victor's niece. DNA evidence suggested she was his biological daughter. The resort fell into uneasy silence as evening descended. Family members retreated to their respective suites, processing the day's revelations through hushed phone calls and locked doors. Security personnel maintained discreet positions throughout the property, their presence multiplied following the chaotic brunch. Victor spent hours in his office suite, making frantic calls to lawyers and fixers. His empire demanded protection. His legacy required preservation. Documents vanished into shredders. Digital evidence disappeared from servers. Money moved between accounts with urgency that triggered automatic fraud alerts. At 11:30, Liana stood alone on her private balcony, overlooking the moonlit ocean. The DNA revelation had shattered her final illusions. Her identity, her past, everything she believed about herself, had been constructed on calculated lies. The psychological weight crushed her remaining defenses. The soft knock at her door came precisely at midnight. "We need to talk," Victor said when she opened it, pushing past her into the suite. Don was the commanding businessman, replaced by a desperate man watching his carefully constructed world collapse. "Everything can still be managed if we coordinate our response." "Managed?" Liana whispered, keeping distance between them. "You knew I was your daughter, while you—" She could not finish the sentence. "Biological connections are merely scientific technicalities," he replied, his rationalization revealing the depth of his psychological distortion. "Our connection transcended conventional boundaries. You felt it too." His attempt to approach her triggered a primal response. Liana backed away, knocking over a side table. The heavy marble ashtray and decorative letter opener clattered to the floor. "You manipulated my entire existence," she said, voice rising. "You kept me dependent on you financially. You isolated me from potential relationships. You created this trap." "I protected you," Victor countered, his composure fracturing. "Everything I built would eventually become yours. The others cannot understand what we share." When he grabbed her wrist, something fundamental broke within Liana. 30 years of suppressed rage. Not just her own, but inherited from generations of women manipulated by powerful men, erupted in a moment of blind fury. The letter opener entered just below his ribcage. The initial thrust might have been survivable, but as Victor staggered backward in shock, Liana advanced, driving the ornate blade deeper with each movement. "You will never control anyone again," she whispered as he collapsed. Blood spread across the imported Italian marble, creating abstract patterns beneath the chandelier light. Victor made 3 attempts to speak, each weaker than the last, before his eyes fixed on infinity. Cassandra discovered the scene 30 minutes later, having come to check on Liana's well-being. Her practical nature took immediate command. She did not scream or panic. She assessed the situation with clinical detachment, then made 2 phone calls, one to security, one to her private attorney. When authorities arrived, they found Liana seated calmly beside her father's body, the bloody letter opener still clutched in her hand. She offered no resistance. She provided no explanation. Her vacant expression reflected complete psychological shutdown. What drives someone to such extreme violence against their own blood? Was this a moment of temporary insanity or calculated revenge? Share your theories in the comments below. What would you have done in Liana's position after discovering such profound betrayal? The family gathered in shocked silence as medical examiners removed Victor's body. The dynasty that had seemed unshakable hours earlier now teetered on complete dissolution. No one noticed the small recording device blinking beneath Victor's watch, capturing his final conversation and the truth about his death. The murder of Victor Sinclair dominated national headlines for weeks. "Billionaire slain in family paradise" screamed front pages across America. News helicopters circled Fisher Island, despite no-fly zones. Reporters offered 6-figure payments to resort staff for insider details. Local authorities found themselves overwhelmed by both the case complexity and intense media scrutiny. The Federal Bureau of Investigation intervened within 24 hours, establishing jurisdiction due to potential financial crimes uncovered during their initial assessment. "This investigation goes beyond homicide," announced Special Agent Thomas Reynolds at the preliminary press conference. "We are examining decades of questionable business practices, potential tax fraud, and evidence of psychological manipulation that created the environment for this tragedy." The Sinclair global stock price plummeted 43% in 2 trading days. Board members called emergency meetings to distance the corporation from its founder. Long-buried complaints from former employees surfaced, revealing patterns of intimidation and financial misconduct throughout the company history. Family members scattered globally, each hiring separate legal teams. Marcus Sinclair, presumed heir to the empire, found himself locked out of critical accounts when digital forensics revealed his complicity in multiple international tax schemes. Eleanor filed for divorce within 72 hours of returning to New York. Cassandra emerged as the unexpected stabilizing force. Her meticulous documentation of Victor's misconduct, evidence she had accumulated over 15 years, proved invaluable to investigators. Her testimony revealed the calculated nature of his control over Liana and other family members. The legal proceedings took unexpected turns when that recording device on Victor's watch revealed his admission of knowing Liana was his daughter while continuing their relationship. This evidence transformed public perception of the case from scandalous murder to justified self-defense against psychological torture. Medical evaluations diagnosed Liana with complex post-traumatic stress disorder resulting from prolonged manipulation and emotional abuse. Prosecutors ultimately reduced charges from first-degree murder to involuntary manslaughter, with recommendations for psychological treatment rather than incarceration. Most shocking to investigators, discovery of a hidden vault in Victor's Miami compound containing evidence linking him to 3 unsolved disappearances of former business rivals. Cold cases from 2 decades earlier suddenly found new leads. The Sinclair fortune, estimated at $11 billion, remained frozen in legal limbo as claims against the estate multiplied. 5 previously unknown individuals came forward with paternity claims and DNA evidence suggesting Victor had maintained multiple secret families across different countries. What other secrets do you think remain buried in the Sinclair empire? Would justice have ever been served if Victor had not been killed? Share your thoughts below about whether extreme wealth makes people believe they are above both law and morality. The news broke internationally within hours. Sinclair empire heir murdered in family scandal dominated headlines across financial and mainstream media. Reporters swarmed the marina where private ferries departed for Fisher Island. Helicopters circled overhead, capturing aerial footage of crime scene investigators moving methodically through the exclusive property. The Miami-Dade Police Department established a command center in the resort's conference facility. Detective Gabriela Morales, head of the high-profile crimes division, conducted 28 separate interviews over 72 hours. Each family member provided a slightly different perspective on the relationship between Victor and Liana, creating a mosaic of manipulation, control, and psychological abuse. The wealthy believe different rules apply to them, Detective Morales later stated in her official report. This case demonstrates the consequences when that belief system collapses. Sinclair Global stock plummeted 42% in the first trading day following Victor's death. Emergency board meetings convened in New York, London, and Singapore simultaneously. Succession plans designed for orderly transition proved inadequate for scandal-driven collapse. 3 executive vice presidents resigned immediately, unwilling to navigate the public relations catastrophe. The family structure disintegrated along predictable fault lines. Marcus led one faction, claiming rightful control of company assets. Cassandra championed another, arguing for complete restructuring. Cousins and distant relatives emerged from obscurity, with legal claims based on obscure trust provisions. 6 separate lawsuits were filed within 2 weeks. Wealth that had taken generations to accumulate now fueled its own destruction through legal warfare. Private investigators hired by competing family branches uncovered additional scandals, financial improprieties, tax evasion strategies, and evidence suggesting Victor had manipulated his brother's death years earlier. The criminal investigation revealed the most damaging evidence through Victor's watch recording. The audio captured not just his final conversation, but his explicit admission of knowingly pursuing a relationship with his biological daughter. The psychological manipulation documented in those 4 minutes transformed public perception of Liana from villain to victim. The legal team constructed a defense based on years of documented emotional abuse and psychological control. Psychiatric evaluations revealed profound trauma consistent with coercive control. The district attorney, facing intense media scrutiny and overwhelming evidence of Victor's predatory behavior, reduced charges from first-degree murder to voluntary manslaughter. 3 months after the Miami tragedy, as the family empire continued its public dismantling, forensic accountants made a discovery that altered the entire narrative. Encrypted financial transfers revealing Victor had arranged the accident that killed Liana's parents 14 years earlier, clearing the path for his guardianship and subsequent control. The revelation stunned even veteran investigators. The case transcended ordinary criminal psychology, entering territory few could comprehend. A man so consumed by power and forbidden desire that he orchestrated a double murder to acquire control of a child he knew to be his biological daughter. The Sinclair case reveals fundamental truths about how extreme wealth distorts psychological reality. When individuals accumulate power beyond ordinary constraints, they often develop a dangerous sense of immunity, believing rules exist for others, not themselves. Victor's progression from successful businessman to predator followed this classic pattern of corruption through isolation. Wealth creates psychological barriers between the self and consequences, explains Dr. Amara Josephs, forensic psychologist who analyzed the case. The wealthy rarely hear no. Their environments actively remove obstacles and resistance. This absence of boundaries can deteriorate moral reasoning over time. The forbidden relationship exhibited classic elements of coercive control. Victor systematically removed Liana's financial independence, isolated her from potential support systems, and established himself as the primary authority figure in her life. His dual role as uncle and secret biological father created a power imbalance no healthy relationship could overcome. Family members missed critical warning signs that psychological research identifies as predictive of abuse. Victor's excessive interest in Liana's personal decisions, his anger when she pursued independence, his lavish gifts followed by emotional withdrawal, and his careful management of her access to family resources. These behaviors occurred openly, yet remained invisible, because wealth normalized control dynamics. The family interpreted his manipulation as standard patriarchal leadership rather than predatory grooming. The societal implications extend beyond one family tragedy. The case exposes how financial power shields abusers from normal detection systems. Household staff witnessed concerning behaviors, but remained silent, prioritizing employment security over intervention. Family members recognized troubling patterns, but avoided confrontation that might threaten their financial interests. Most disturbing was the discovery that multiple professionals, attorneys, financial advisors, and security personnel possessed knowledge suggesting impropriety, yet failed to report concerns. This collective silence surrounding wealth reveals how money corrupts, not just individuals, but entire systems of accountability. The psychological destruction extended beyond Victor and Liana to everyone connected to the family system, demonstrating how unchecked power ultimately consumes even those who believe they benefit from its protection. 5 years after the Miami tragedy, the Sinclair survivors walk vastly different paths. Cassandra now heads a foundation for victims of familial abuse, funded ironically by her portion of the dismantled Sinclair fortune. Marcus rebuilt a smaller but ethically managed company, requiring transparency at all levels of operation. Ileana, following a reduced sentence and intensive therapy, lives quietly under a new identity in rural France. Her artwork, exploring themes of identity and reconstruction, sells anonymously in select galleries. The moral clarity emerges from this shattered dynasty. Wealth cannot protect us from the consequences of our choices. No amount of money can purchase immunity from human psychology. Power does not exempt anyone from ethical boundaries. It magnifies our responsibility to maintain them. The destruction of the Sinclair family reminds us that secrets demand payment with compound interest. What begins as private compromise eventually requires public reckoning. The facades we construct eventually collapse under their own weight. If this exploration of wealth, power, and corruption resonated with you, please subscribe and join our community dedicated to understanding the criminal mind. Leave your thoughts below. What family dynasty would you like us to examine next? Next week on Criminal Mind Cortex, the hospital director who eliminated medical competitors across 3 states while being celebrated as a healthcare innovator. The question is not how he killed them, but how he convinced himself he was saving lives.